I'm a big camping fan, but life usually gets in the way with work, family, and other commitments that I hadn't been camping for a few years. I was due a break though, and so decided to go camping with a friend. I'll call him Harry for the story. There was a map that looked to be a great place to camp, with stunning views of a lake and a backdrop of the mountain behind. It seemed perfect. It was just under the day's hike though, so as soon as the sun rose, we got out of the car and started our hike towards this new destination. I was always very adventurous and thrived on being outdoors. The journey was quite pleasant. We made it in record time and had set up camp before the night arose. We had 2 tents set up, a small campfire going, and 2 large logs to sit on as we got ourselves warm. We talked about life, shared a few beers, and shouted out as the night was shaping up to be beautiful. It was a cloudless sky. Harry had started to cook whilst I sat back and looked up to the stars. We had brought our own food, and the night started to get cold. We finished up our food and decided to call it a night. Harry went into his tent, and I in mine. I had brought myself a book and started to do some reading. It had always helped me sleep. Around 1 AM though, I heard Harry unzip his tent and get out. He was always the person to need a toilet at night. I stayed awake as I always liked to make sure he got back safe before I fell asleep too. 5 minutes? 10 minutes? Even half an hour later, nothing. Then I heard him tapping on my tent. Dude, are you awake? Answer me, quick, let me in. By the time I started to unzip the tent, he yanked it open and just dived in. He looked as if he had just seen something terrifying. Mate, are you okay? What's happened? He said there was something in the woods watching them. I asked what it was, but he didn't seem to have an answer, just kept saying how something was watching him. We heard sounds of something rummaging through Harry's tent as we fell silent. It sounded like some kind of animal. Then we heard footsteps walking around outside, circling our tent. Something was dragging across our tent, something sharp. Harry started panicking and I told him to be quiet. We listened some more as we heard animal noises, like a growl. Go away! Shoo! I have a gun here and I will use it if I have to. It was a bluff. I didn't have a gun, but I had no idea what I was shouting to. The noises stopped for almost an hour before they started back up again. If you continue this, I will step out and you will be sorry, I bellowed. Harry looked terrified as I told him we need to be brave and face what was out there. He didn't want to though. I propped myself up and ripped open the tent to find nothing. I rushed out, fists clenched, but nothing was there. I felt freaked out. I told Harry we were walking back to the car right now. It was a long hike, but we didn't want to stay any longer. We left our stuff, and for a few hours we heard the same noises. It was as if someone was following us. On the outside I presented confidence, but on the inside I wanted to run away as fast as I could. Harry stuck by my side and suddenly the noises stopped. We still didn't feel easy, but made it back to the car safely and went back the next day with a few more friends to collect our stuff. But it had been ripped apart. I still feel grateful we decided to leave at that moment, as I wouldn't like to know what would have happened if we had decided to stay. Though I find myself camping a lot. I camped so much that I was in 2 minds about giving up my home in order to do it full time. That might sound a bit mad to some people, but to me, I loved it. Being out in nature and living free. Winter was always the hardest time to be camping as the temperature truly does drop significantly when outside at night. I knew how to handle myself though, and always dress appropriately whilst making small fires quite quickly if I really needed to warm up. I found myself on this cold winter day, not exactly lost, but not truly knowing where I was, walking through the woods and just enjoying nature. It was a rainy day, gently falling down, but it lowered my view drastically. I was going to set up camp in a few hours, so I really wanted to find somewhere for the rest of the night. It felt like I was walking in circles sometimes. As I was walking now, it looked like I saw a man behind some trees in front of me. He had his hood up and just edged out slightly, so half of his body could be seen watching me. I stopped as I could obviously see him. "Hey, I can see you, mate. Are you alright?" He edged back behind the tree and out of sight. I was in the middle of nowhere, so I thought maybe he was just injured or lost. So I carried on walking in his direction, until when I reached the tree, he had vanished. I looked around, having no idea where he vanished to, and saw him again. But this time he was further down, but behind another tree. Now, I don't go believing in ghosts or anything paranormal, but I walked next to the tree. I saw the man standing behind, and again he had vanished. It would be impossible for him to move without me ever seeing him. I spent so much of my time running around after this ghost guy that it had turned dark, and I hadn't even set up camp anyway. I got myself back on track and walked a few more miles before suddenly I heard a crunch behind me. I turned around and the man was standing right in front of me. I fell back, tripping over my own feet before launching myself back to my feet when the man had gone again. As you can imagine, I didn't bother camping that night. I walked back the way I came and eventually made it back to the main road where I left my car. This ghost man never bothered appearing again, and I haven't gone back to those woods. I still camp though, but just in places I know I have been before. So I was with a small group of friends. For this story, I will call them Sam and Georgia. My name is Laura. We had decided to go to a large lake as we had been before, but only during the summer as days out. We had never been camping before, so it was going to be a fun new experience. We had planned everything, had plenty of food, got 2 tents, one for myself and Georgia, and the other for Sam. We even watched YouTube videos on how to start fires and remain safe. So my mum dropped us off at the closest road to the lake. Sadly, it also meant we had to walk for over 2 hours before we reached the lake. There was plenty of daylight though. We shared laughs and the hike went pretty smoothly. Tents got set up quite quickly. The lake was peaceful and we went for a brief swim before we chilled for the night. It was hot out, so we truly sat back and chilled. As we sat back in silence though, Sam shot up and asked if we had heard a noise. Apparently it was coming from his right, from within the trees. I told him to stop messing around as Georgia is somebody that panics quite easily and he usually plays pranks. He sat back, but again 10 minutes later he shot back up, standing on his feet and moving in between myself and Georgia, saying he wasn't messing around. We all got to our feet and decided to go check it out. I was determined it was nothing but a wild animal just scurrying around. So we searched close by and found obviously nothing. We decided to have an early night as Sam was clearly playing pranks and I could see Georgia was starting to worry slightly. Sam got into his tent, Georgia stepped into ours, and before I stepped inside I heard a twig snap and I quickly looked up to catch someone staring at us from behind a tree. I was positive I knew what I saw, and just dove into the tent, zipping it shut. I used a walkie-talkie to tell Sam to come over to our tent right now. He quickly joins us and asks what is going on. I tell them both that there is somebody in the woods watching us. Sam was smug, but also started to panic. Georgia was keeping on about what we were going to do, and I had no idea. We knew there was a small wooden paddle boat a few yards down along the lake. I figured if we can get to it, then maybe we would be safe from this person, as they wouldn't be able to chase us. So it was final. With no other options, we sat and listened to every noise and patiently waited for the perfect time, which simply did not exist. On the count of 3, I said quietly. 1, 2, 3. I unzipped the tent and stepped out first. Georgia quickly followed, and Sam wasn't far behind. I looked in the direction of where the person was, but they weren't there anymore. We walked cautiously toward the boat when we heard a loud scream close by. We took off sprinting towards the boat. Sam reached it first and started pushing it into the water, as myself and Georgia quickly just ran into the lake and jumped into the boat. We all sat up to see a woman standing at the edge of the lake, staring at us evilly. We breathed a sigh of relief knowing she couldn't get to us, and that was how we stayed until the morning. We watched her for quite some time. It was hard to make out her features though. We knew she was tall, thin, with long hair. Georgia didn't feel comfortable seeing her, and the lake was exceptionally large, so we drifted off until she was out of sight. When morning came, we went back, got our stuff, wondering if this woman was going to show, and quickly headed off back to the main road. Thankfully, the woman never did show again, and my mum was waiting to pick us up. We told her all about the story, and after thinking we were all joking at first, she won't let me go camping again unless I am with her parent.